you get kind of caught up in a social movement?
My pastor was James Morris Lawson Jr. He's in California now, retired elder. Reverend Lawson had served time in prison, refusing to fight in the war. He was a conscientious objector. He also went to India and studied Gandhi. He came back. He was the one that actually shared the nonviolent process with SCLC, even though his name is not like attached to that. And so from the pulpit, we were not only getting messages that were biblically bound, but we were getting messages that were socially related to issues and concerns in the city, and how we were all God's children, and God would not look upon this earth today and be happy with the way conditions were, and that we as God's children have a role to play in making things better for all of God's children. And so when you're hearing messages and you're riding around with your pastor and you're going to colleges and hearing him talk about war and killing is wrong, and no matter what, killing is wrong, it's one of our commandments. We can justify it in war, but if somebody just kills somebody else, it's absolutely sin, and we need to punish them for it. The contradictory in what Scripture says and what government sometimes enforces you to do. When the Sanitation Strike kicked off, our church was one of the sites that had a session, and people came to our church, and ministers would speak, and they would say, we're picketing downtown, don't be caught downtown. If you don't support it by picketing or this, don't go down and give your money to them. And so every Sunday there was an update. I started going to the mass meetings. They got to the point they stopped going from church to church, and they were housed at Claiborne Temple. And so every day from school, the minute I could get out of class, I would take off and go to Claiborne Temple. It was an African Methodist Episcopal church. But I was hearing stories. I was knowing sanitation workers by name. I was meeting their families. I was hearing how the wife was struggling, saying, we got a baby that's sick and we have no resources to take care of her. You're not working. You might need to start looking for another job if you're not going to go back to work for them. I was hearing things, and then I was also recognizing more than anything the stories of what they were saying, but the job that they had to do. And that's not a job I would want to do. And they weren't making nothing. They weren't getting benefits. They weren't respected or treated like they were human beings. They were objects. They had a rainy day law where white people that were driving or whatever would go to work, they'd clock in or sign in, and they'd sit there all day because it was raining and they couldn't work. But if you worked as a black person and you had to go to work and you would get ready to sign in, they'd say, no, weather's too bad, you need to go home. Now you knew that before you got there. But if you didn't go and sign in, it was like you didn't show up for work. But they weren't going to pay you anyway because it was raining and they send you back home. They're not paying you anything that you can manage your family with. So you're burning your gas, going to work when you know you don't have to work. To me, that was that part of hatred with racism glued together. So I would hear stuff and I would start getting angrier. At some point, I joined a group that we're not doing all the nonviolent stuff. H. Ralph Brown had come and started talking to folks at a college I was attending, and they started working and passing flyers out and being on campus and saying, you know, this picketing is good, y'all, and it's nonviolent stuff, but we're not getting anywhere. If we burn down a building or two, we'll shut down the revenue of the people on Beale Street. They'll go to the mayor, and the mayor will resolve this issue overnight. Well, that made sense. Not understanding, even though I think I was sold on nonviolence, it was too slow. Right. It was too slow. And we wanted instant results. And picketing wasn't doing it. Taking people to jail wasn't doing it. I didn't understand what was going on until the first part of February. And Walker and Cole were caught up in the back of the garbage truck during an electrical storm. They lost their life. The city gave them $500 for the funeral and a month's salary of $1 and something an hour. It enraged the sanitation workers. And so there was not many days that went by before 1,300 of them walked off the job. And when they walked off the job, that was when the picketing and everything else kicked in.
What prompted Reverend Lawson to reach out to Martin Luther King? You know?
He knew him. When he was in Nashville at Vanderbilt, he was part of the Freedom Riders, and he helped organize the sit-ins in Nashville. And Dr. King, SCLC actually became part of that. And Jim Lawson was the one that trained students on how to react to violence. He invited them to come the first time. Dr. King almost immediately came, met with sanitation workers, and then he said he'd come back. So he came back again, and the question was asked, are your marchers and stuff programmed? Well, we've been picketing every day. Nobody's kicked or fought back or done anything. It's been non-violent process. And so the answer was yes. So Dr. King comes back. He's at the Riverview Holiday Inn on the waterfront. He's challenged by the militant group about why he stayed there when there was this black hotel. So actually, that day, I was approached by some of the invaders, and they said, we need you to put on an armband, because I used to go to their meetings, and so I was like part of them, but I was part of the other group too. Put on an armband, and at some point, it's gonna go down. And I said, what's going down? You'll know. And when you see what's going down, just follow suit. Well, I was really uncomfortable with that. And I think part of it too was that Dr. King's leading this march. So what are you talking about? Why are you telling me, black people to black people, that something's gonna go down that you may be a part of? Now I gotta tell somebody. So I went to Lawson and I said, Jim, you can't have this march. You need to shut it down. And he said, you know, and I said, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I've been told something was going down. And I couldn't rest until I got that off me. And so he met with clergy and maybe even Dr. King. And the response was that they were not equipped to put sound systems outside of Claiborne Temple where the march was starting. So a lot of folks wouldn't get to hear Dr. King, and that would cause a riot. So they were just going to try to be in their best behavior, monitor it better, and we have the march. When Dr. King turned on Main Street, somebody shattered glass. Looting started. They almost knocked Dr. King down. They got him in a car, took him to the hotels. I got in somebody's car, and we followed them to the hotel. And when we got to the Rivermont, Holiday Inn Rivermont, we were headed to his room. And Jim Lawson tells Dr. King, this is the lady that said, and he was looked like he was so frustrated and tired. But he reached out and shook my hand, and he said, thank you, thank you. And immediately the media started saying this man could not lead a nonviolent demonstration, that he had lost it with his people, and that he was no longer that leader. So he was determined to come back. But SCLC was working on that Second Poor People's Campaign that was going to leave Marks, Mississippi and go to D.C. And so the SCLC staff people, I don't know if Jesse was one of them, but a whole lot of his staff said, Martin, you don't need to go back to Memphis. Let that go. Let's work on Marks.
That was the Poor People's March, right?
Right. And Jim called him up, and I'm sure something like, the least of these our brothers are hurting, sanitation workers. And Dr. King was determined, I think, within that energy and flow to show the world that he could do this. So sent staff to come down and work and train. I spent time organizing kids from Memphis State, Lemoyne, where I was going. I was picking up high school kids and encouraging them, when he comes back, y'all, we're gonna do this thing. And it was gonna be a Black Monday, a work stoppage day for every African American person that worked. And they would participate in the march. The mayor, Henry Loeb, was saying, if you don't go to work, I'm encouraging all the people y'all work for to let y'all go because you're not reliable employees. So we don't know how it's going to turn out. That Sunday evening, it started snowing. It's March now. It started snowing, and it snowed, and it snowed. And Monday morning, it was that kind of snow outside. The mayor couldn't even get downtown to his office. The whole city shut down. And the funny thing, we were saying, God's on our side. You know, God sent the snow to show y'all, Mayor, that you better listen because we got God on our side. And the mayor was saying, you know, God sent the snow so y'all could keep your jobs because, you know, all of y'all are going to get fired if you didn't show up for work, kind of thing. And then they scheduled for him to come back. And that's when he came and did his speech on April 3rd. He met with the mayor. He spoke that night when he wasn't even supposed to speak.
And you were there?
Yes. And they called Dr. King to tell him people did not come to hear Ralph. These people are here to hear you. The amazing thing that night was that they were trying to kill time because he got to get up and get dressed to get there. So Al Sampson from Chicago, little short minister, talked about his relationship with Dr. King, everything he had done with Dr. King, but it was like him telling Dr. King's story and how he was a part of it. And then another minister got up, and I looked at it as a eulogy, both of them. He talked about the same kind of stuff, but it was different stuff because he's from another area. Then Abernathy got up, and Abernathy said, you know, I've been with Martin since da-da-da-da-da, and we've been to jail together, and we were in Selma together, and we were in Birmingham, and he did the same thing, all three of them. And then the kicker was Dr. King comes in, and he stands up, and he talks about the threats on his life before he left Atlanta, how they were making sure the plane was all right. They went on PA system, because we have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on board. How when he got off the flight in Memphis, people were telling him, we're getting calls, messages are coming through that somebody's gonna try to take your life. All of that he was saying to the audience. And then he started talking about his life, and he said, if I had to choose a century to live in, this would be the century I would choose. Because of this century, I was able to see and be a part of the Montgomery bus boycott. And he goes over his life himself. And he said, if I had lived like I'm living in this century, I'd be here in Memphis, Tennessee, supporting the sanitation workers. And then you know the speech where he starts saying, there's threats on my life, but it don't matter no more. All the energy that you could see, if you were at the concert, the violinist the other night, he was going, so I thought at any moment he would just pass out like the little boy did in the movie from exhaustion. He gave everything. And, you know, I may not get there with you.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
And I just kept hearing that voice when I was at the hotel. And I'm looking at him laying on the balcony. Dr. King had had catfish that day. So he had said to staff, it's the best catfish I have ever eaten. And like I said, I was working every day doing stuff. And so when I got to Claiborne Temple, James Orange, part of SCLC, worked out of Philadelphia, Mississippi. James Orange said, I'm going to the hotel to get some catfish. Doc said, it's off the edge. And it's on me. I'm feeding whoever want to go. It's that good. So I hit the car. So Mary Hunt is the black woman pointing very clearly across the way. Mary got in my car because I usually would take Mary home. Belleville and Orange, I think, got in the car with an undercover agent that we didn't know was an undercover agent. And so the 5 or 6 of us were headed to the hotel. We pull into the parking lot. I parked my car on the right side of the stairwells that I actually ran up that was closer to his room. And we're headed to the restaurant. And as we are getting out the car, talking and walking toward the restaurant, that I had no idea where it was, but Orange was saying it's this way. Dr. King comes out of his room and he starts talking. And like I'm about here and you're there and I get about here, he comes out of his room and I stop and I'm looking up at him and never took my eyes off of him. And he's chatting down below. I think it was Ben Branch, he was telling him to play his favorite song. And I think Ben said, "Doc, you might need a jacket." I don't know who it was, but I'm thinking it was Ben Branch. That was the conversation going on. He said, "Because it may get a little nippy tonight." And he turns to go to the room, but Abernathy is standing there, and he said, "I'll get it. Martin, I'll get it." So Dr. King turns back around, continues to chat. Abernathy goes right into the room. Sounds like a truck backfiring. And somebody starts saying, get down, because I'm thinking at that moment they were thinking, today you'd know it would happen, that everybody in that parking lot could have been taken out if the right gun had been in the hands, but the intent was to take Dr. King out and get out of town. I'm looking at him and he's being lifted up and thrown back. And I don't know what I thought I could do, but it was like, the man's hurt. And next thing I knew, I was stepping over his legs. The blood was coming from the left side around his neck, and it was like a pool of it. His eyes were open, and he had the most pleasant expression on his face, because he was happy. I knelt down, and I grabbed his wrists to see if I could get a pulse. And it was like maybe something moved, but there was nothing like you can feel on a regular beat. It was like very, very, very slow. I unbuckled his belt. His tie was already blown off, halfway off, and I unbuckled the button to his pants to try to help give him. And then I looked over and I was looking around for what can we do to put pressure to maybe stop some of the bleeding before he bleeds out. And there was a linen basket, and I asked somebody to get, whoever's there, I said, get some towels so we can put pressure. And the person that came over, I want to say it was the undercover cop, Morale. He came over, I got up, and he started putting pressure. Then at some point, Abernathy, that's how rapidly we got upstairs. Abernathy had just gone in to get a coat. Now, I don't know if he went to the bathroom, because it's, as I tell the story, it seems like it was hours later, but it was like seconds. And he comes running out the room, and I remember hearing him say to Morale, I got it. That's my friend. This is my friend. And Morale got up. I did not realize that there was a photographer. There was an African guy that got pictures and actually went to Ernest Withers' photography shop to print them. And then Ernest Withers appears at he's right around the corner on Beale Street. And so immediately it went on black radio. Dr. King's been shot. So he comes to the hotel and he's taking pictures. But when we heard the ambulance come, I said to people around me, we need to get out their way so they can get Dr. King. We could hear it. And it was like, before they pull in here, we need to move. It's nothing else we can do here. It's nothing we can do at all. and we just need to get out of their way so they can give him the help. I've never seen anyone shot before. But to see the amount of blood. And so once I got down back in the parking area, there was a payphone near the building we were going to go through, which was, I think, the registration area to get to the restaurant. And I pulled out whatever it took, and I called James Lawson. And his wife answered the phone. And I remember I was really, if I was making sense at all, it ceased to happen pretty much then. And I said to her, Dorothy, is Jim home? And she said, yeah. Are you okay? I said, I need to talk to Jim. I don't have much left now, so I need to talk to him. So she hollers for him, and she says, it's Clara, something wrong. And he comes to the phone and he says, you know, you okay? And I said, they shot him. They shot who? I said, they shot Dr. King. I said, it don't look good. And he said, where did they take him? And then I got mad at him because that anger was starting to flare up. The reality of saying it was clear that this has happened. I'm telling somebody this has happened. So I'm starting to get mad. So I hollered at him. I said, I don't know where they took him. Get on the radio, you figure it out, you know. Why are you asking me anything? And then I get off the phone, and they put the tape up. And I go to this one white officer standing there, and I said, you need to move that so I can get my car out. And he said, nobody can leave. Because the TV was saying a curfew was being set. He got shot around 6 o'clock. So it was like 7 o'clock. They were getting ready to put a curfew on the city. I need to get home. And the guy said, no, you can't leave. And I know my parents, my mom sit at the windows when I'm on dates until she see the car pull up, and then you see the curtain kind of move back, and then when you get in the house, she's in the bed, but you know she's waiting for you to get home. So I know with this national news, my folks are looking for me. Somebody's out there shooting black folks. My folks are looking for me. Dr. King's been shot. My brother goes by the house on his way home, and he says, Jean, that's my middle name, is at the hotel. The car was on the news. So she's okay. They say it's only Dr. King that got shot. Well, they don't know, nobody knows the full story. So nobody knows, is Dr. King the only one dead? Were other people shot? So my parents are really going through some stuff. I need to get home. It's not 7 o'clock yet. So you need to move the tape. And I told the officer, I said, man, you don't know my mama. I need to get home. And he was like, really kind of pushy. It was like, we need to get some information, and you just need to go until we'll decide. And I started pounding on his chest. And I said, I need to get home. I'm gonna drive through it. And I was getting ready to turn to get to my car, and he grabbed my wrist and took it behind my back, put a handcuff on it, and he was in the process of taking the other arm. And this white policeman, another one, came over to him and called him by name, and he said, let the woman go. Don't you know what has happened here today? Let her go. And so he uncuffed me. And the other officer very calmly said, ma'am, you are a witness. We need your phone number, We need your address, your name. We need to know how to get in touch with you so that the evidence can be. And I said, nobody here did this. Y'all did this. And I'm telling him white people did it. Y'all need to be out looking for who did it instead of all of these polices around this hotel with Jesse Jackson, Jose Williams, and people that worked with Dr. King. I said, y'all need to be out. He said, ma'am, we have people out looking, but we're staying here to make sure none of the evidence is messed with. And he did it in such a common way. I kind of calmed down. And then after a while, we went into another room that some of the staff was staying in. And they came and got information from everybody. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and National Guard escorted you home.
Wow.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
My dad is quiet, so I was really anticipating my mom being hysterical, but she was pretty calm. My dad said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And then he said, "Are you hurt?" And I said, "No." And then I said, "But I'm not okay." And he said, "Okay, but you're not hurt. So take a bath. And if you don't want to take a bath, just go on and get in bed. When you need us, we're here." And I went to my room.
Dr. Lawson, I think I read this someplace, subsequently got to know James Earl Ray
Yes.
and may have conducted a marriage, something like that. Could you explain what that was and kind of what your sense of all that was?
To my knowledge, all of the SCLC staff, as well as King's family, went to Nashville to meet with James Earl Ray at some point to ask him why. And undoubtedly his response to everybody was that he did not kill Dr. King. My pastor, James Lawson, when he went, Ray was dating somebody at some point, and I don't know all the details of the story, but Ray had met someone or knew someone and they wanted to get married, and he felt comfortable around James Lawson enough to ask him would he marry him and this woman. And Lawson was kind of beat down by a lot of people in marrying the man that was the known name of assassinating Dr. King. But he said to me, he said, "I took vows when I was ordained, and I saw no reason why those two should not be married. They asked me, I did what my vows called me to do." And I was like, yeah, that's something you would say, you know, because that's the kind of person, you'd have to get to know Jim Lawson. He was an unusual, brilliant, and still is, person.
I saw him twice on April the 4th, the day he was assassinated. What was left unsaid on that day perhaps might have been how much I appreciated his life and his leadership, and to the extent to which I understood that to be indeed a carrying of the cross.